I just want to thank everyone for joining us today for our No Holds Bar Muv-Luv discussion. Extra, unlimited, alternative, everything's on the table. So spoiler warning, and you have been warned. So Blue, thank you again for joining me. Being the first collab, this has been an incredible experience. But when it comes to Muv-Luv, this was my first hardcore true visual novel, and it pulled no punches. So I just kind of want to say, when was your first experience playing Muv-Luv?
So Muv-Luv was interesting. By the way, hello everybody. This is TheBlueShifting. So Muv-Luv was odd because I started my channel back in the end of 2015, like December 2015, 2016, and the whole reason was that I had fallen in love with the genre of visual novels, but had played none, like zero. I just saw someone play it. And so I just started making content because I wanted to share something that I thought was really cool, visual novels, but I didn't have anybody to share it with, so I started posting it. Muv-Luv was actually the third visual novel I started on the channel, period. And I found it because at the time there's a website you can go to. I think it's called Game Keys or Game Key. Like it's a website that connected creators with content that people that wanted videos to be made about it. And they had posted Muv-Luv on there. And so it popped up, and I asked for a free key. Didn't get one, obviously, because I think at that time I had like 200 subscribers. And I was like, okay, well, it makes sense. But I saw that they were interested in creators making content. So it's a safe place for me to be like, all right, if they're here, then they're probably okay with me making the content. And it popped up, and I was like, this looks kind of cute, because it only showed extra, because it was obviously avoiding spoilers. So I was like, well, that looks cute and fun. And then I looked it up real quick on VMDB, and like it popped up, and people was like, best thing I've ever played. And I was like, okay, well, let's just jump into that then and just see what happens. And it was such a crazy time in my life, and my rig was so jerried, like I barely upgraded to a desktop, because before that I was recording on a laptop with like a 480p little face cam, and right. The game, even that laptop was so old and just dusty, it could barely run a visual novel. So
wow, yeah.
It was one of the first I picked up when I had first got a decent computer, and I just jumped into it like feet first.
Wow. So for me, I starting the channel, I really wanted to kind of branch out to games that, I just kind of broaden my horizons. And I'm a big Soulsborne fan and JRPG fan. And I had met a friend on Twitter, Zaduk Zud. If you're watching, thank you so much for all you do. She recommended Muv-Luv. She's like a Muv-Luv ambassador, just saying the praises of this. So
doing God's work.
Yes. So essentially, I was like, okay, they're a really big fan into visual novels, but also the same games I am, with the Soulsborne. So I was like, well, if they're really into this, then there must be something more than just the cutesy slice of life that it's portraying itself as. So essentially, I did something I never did before. I just went and blind bought Muv-Luv Extra Unlimited combo for the Vita and also alternative, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play these. I was really tempted to start Virtue's Last Reward, which I always hear is fantastic, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to jump into this. And honestly, Extra, at first I disliked Takaru so much. I was like, I don't know if I can get through this. I was at that point, but I was like, no, there's something deeper here, because like every time Yuko Sensei's presence was always so foreboding, and there was so much more to it. And I was like, I had heard people say there's foreshadowing in Extra. I was like, so I was really kind of watching for it. But that's really the only thing I knew, is that Extra, essentially sets it up, and you just need to commit. The second I beat Extra, and from the first few seconds of Unlimited, I was hooked. And a lot of people hate on Extra. I genuinely didn't have that bad a time with it. I actually liked it. I thought it was really good. And now that I've beaten the series, looking back, Extra is like this gold mine. And, I think it has one of the highest replay values of the three, with all the many different routes you can get.
Absolutely. Like, it's funny because I had a very similar experience for being someone. I think it might be kind of a gauntlet, or maybe it's a way of filtering out. Because I think the first half of Extra is a bit of a slog, and that's kind of the thing that makes it hard to recommend it to people, honestly, because it's like you got to sit them down and you're like, all right, look, you will literally change, it'll change your life if you play this game and you read this story, but the first 20 hours are really hard, and it's going to feel pointless, and it's hard to like really feel related to the main character. And so it's like that's a hard pitch to sell somebody. The best way for me to get people interested actually is to talk about the fact that it gets to mechs, but I need to make sure that like you got to play Extra first. Like, it's worth it. The payoff is worth every second.
I really can honestly say if I had skipped Extra, the impact of Unlimited and Alternative would, especially Alternative, would have been less. You know, it would have still hurt, but it would not have punched me into my soul, you know, if I had not played Extra first. So,
like, we talk about Chomp all the time, but the thing is, like, Chomp was the beginning of what I think made Alternative truly like incredible.
Yeah,
Chomp was the first go because it was the gate that we first passed where it's like, okay, this is for real.
Oh, we're
like,
jumping
up until
straight
now. Yeah, it's like up until now, like, things have worked out essentially in the end. Like, it's been hard and harrowing and Unlimited, but things worked out ultimately. That was the first time where we're like, oh no, this is serious. And then we have the whole point of him like regressing back to an an alternative version of the Extra timeline.
Yeah.
And like fleeing like what he had done or seen and witnessed. And then like there's no way that part would be like anywhere close to impactful if you had decided to skip Extra. Like, there's no way you could enjoy that.
Right. One thing I am interested in is if Takaru from Extra and how he's kind of hard for me to gravitate towards in the end. Now, I want to state for the record, Takaru is legit one of my favorite protagonists in gaming, okay? Like, he redeems himself, to put it lightly.
Well.
I wonder if it's like almost like a cultural thing. Like, I would like to speak to somebody, you know, from Japan and their culture, and like when they play Extra, do you hate him as much as like a Western audience does? You know, like kind of his interactions and stuff like that? Because I feel like he's just made to be unlikable, period. Like, I think everybody dislikes him, but then, you know, we watch him grow, because what you mentioned there is how he tries to regress and escape from essentially the pain of Chomp and back to the Extra timeline. That part, honestly, like, obviously Chomp is shocking, it's horrific, it's scarring, but for me, the part that really got me is, you know, somebody who has dealt with loss and, you know, had a loved one die, seeing Takaru's desperation to regress back to a simpler, perfect time and to beg forgiveness and all these things, the mastery of that entire section. God help whoever wrote that, because that person knows exactly what it's like to be dying inside. It was so perfectly timed. And I will say it, the scene of him crying in Marimo's lap is one of the most painful scenes in the whole series for me. But obviously, that's excluding the suicide mission at the end. So.
Oh, fetch, yeah. I think if you're talking about impactful, like that, like of the sequence there, like I think the lap crying is definitely good, but for me, I think one of the more impactful ones was actually like the next morning. So like when we realize there's the domino effect that he goes through when after he has that scene the next morning, he finds out that Marimo in the Extra universe was then murdered like later that night in a very similar way. And like the horror when he like talks to Yuko and is like, what the heck's going on? She like theorizes, she's like, well, you brought baggage with you. Like your reality and how you perceived reality, you carried it back. And now this world is going to start reflecting what you've brought back with you. And then then the next part of that where he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then he goes back home and Maya comes down the stairs and she bumps into him and she's like, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, oh, hey, Maya, what's going on? Like, is everything okay? And she kind of looks at him and she's like, who are you?
Oh
For
my
me,
God.
that's what really killed my soul. Like, I was hurting. Go ahead.
Oh no, please go ahead. Sorry.
I was hurting because of the Marimo stuff, and I was in such pain because I was like, seriously, how can this be? Why is this getting worse? And then when that happened, because Maya is my girl. I liked Maya from Extra and never let go. She was always like the person I was just like, she's the best.
I'm a
and so to hear her be like,
Sumika
I don't even
right
know
here.
who you are. Oh, hey, you got to be out there. There's plenty of Sumika for everybody who wants it.
Right.
And but I was always a Maya. I was always a Maya player.
Right.
Like anybody who watched my playthrough will tell you. Like, it was always Maya from the get-go. But when she's just like, who are you? I was just like, that's when the hammer hit me. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't enough that, Chomp happens in the beta timeline. That was horrific. But for him to come back and effectively be the cause, like, she died because of him. And like, there's no sugarcoating it or trying to, like, if he had not gone back to the Extra timeline, she would, and like that guilt. But yeah, like, and what also got me very powerful in that moment is the journal entries to where, like, you don't know why Sumika's like, why isn't Sumika forgetting Tucker? But then slowly, oh my God, it was just,
it's horrible.
Like, it was just like one of those things where I was like, even as a gamer, I was almost asking the writers, please give me a reason to be happy. And
I know,
like, you go to the Extra timeline and, he asks for forgiveness. Boom, she's murdered. And then you see Maya and you're like, please, someone, like, give me a reason to not die inside right now. And then it's just boom, boom, boom. And honestly, and it's that moment where he has to be forced to, like, no, I have to rise to the occasion. Like, I can't run from this anymore. It was just, honestly, I think that for me, that whole scene kind of essentially hit so hard because once you get to the end of the game and it's just this gauntlet of misery, I feel like my heart was kind of hardened with Takaru, but there at the end with Maya, when he has to sacrifice her, to stop it. I mean, it's just so painful every time. Like, it's like, and then you hear somebody complaining about Extra, like, this is a trash game. You're like, you have no idea what you speak of.
I have no idea. And I would argue too, to anyone who's listening and like maybe started and just kind of got burned out on that Extra, like, Extra does deliver. Like, the best thing about Extra, in my opinion, is the fact that it really plays up these tropes, the tropes that we've been programmed. If you play visual novels, watched anime, or even just most, like, some TV nowadays, like, you get programmed to be like, oh, this is this kind of girl. Here's the tsundere. Here's like the class clown. Here's like the airhead best friend. Here's like the clueless outsider foreigner girl. Like you have all these like tropes, and for the first half, they absolutely lay into the tropes, and that's the thing. It's like despite the fact that that's kind of trash, it's the trash we love to eat, like the Twinkies of anime. So like you get through it, but here's the thing: if you're tired of that, just keep going, because when you go through, eventually you get to the choices that lead you down a path, and once you start going down that path, you're going to find that it'll take everything you have preconceived of a trope, and in Extra, it'll flip it on its head for you.
Right.
Every character, I think, when you come to their story, you really get to explore their motivations make sense. The way they process the world, and the way they behave, absolutely falls in line with something that you can comprehend. They stay true to themselves, and there's not like some big reveal that's just like, oh, I was just being like this, but I'm actually a completely different person at home. It's like, no, they're who they are, and they act the way they are, but then you fall in love with why they do. I think the biggest turnaround for me is Class Rep, because she was always the real obnoxious to me. Like, I had a hard time relating to her as a character, but then when I played her ending, I found that hers was the most wholesome. And like, when I got to the end, I was like, you're not my favorite character by far, and I don't think you're the best match with Takaru, but you're the one I believe the most. Right.
She was my route for Unlimited, and I should preface that for Unlimited, I did choose Chizuru, and at the end of that, I was so like, I have to see where alternative goes. I immediately went from there to, so I still need to go back and experience the other routes in Unlimited.
Oh, yeah.
So
Here's the thing. I got a question for you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Did you send her on the ships?
I did.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When I got that ending, because it has the extra credit scene at the end when you do that.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Thing is, like, when I got that, at the time, like, I've got 2 sons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're twins.
Mm-hmm.
And I had them. They were about 8 months old when I played that game.
Oh, dude, I don't know.
And so when I saw that, I died inside.
Yeah.
Like, I died on camera. And
Yeah.
I recorded it, and I shamelessly posted it. Like,
Yeah.
you want to see a grown man break, watch the final part of Unlimited, I literally fall to pieces.
I wondered how that ending is, because with Chizuru, yeah, there was no way I was not going to send her. You know, I was like, are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really? Like, and so I sent her, and then when it shows her with her child, yeah, I have a 4-year-old son, and I immediately, like, as soon as the credits rolled, I just went in there and just sat in his room, and I was just like, God.
Aww.
I was like, this game hits so hard. And then I went and booted up alternative. So
yeah, you're like, I gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta know what happens. Because, like, I mean, that ending is so definite, you know, but it leaves so much open. And that's what's not confusing, but that's what, when I found out where, like, Photon Melodies and Photon, I forget the other one.
Photon Flowers.
Yeah, where those head, and that it's in What Happens on Earth. I was like, that is brilliant. Like, for a spinoff series, that's brilliant to do it on that. So I was very intrigued by that. And one thing I do want to ask, it is a little off topic, but when
that's fine.
So in Unlimited, when you first met Kasumi and the brain, and you're not seeing Sumika anywhere, at any point did you think, like, what's going on here? Like, because I thought Sumika may in some way have been like a reincarnation or something of Sumika. That's like where my brain was going the whole time.
Well, here's interesting, because, like, remember, what's fun about, from my experience, is, again, I have a blind playthrough on YouTube, so you can see all of my initial, like, thoughts. You can hear my theories.
Yeah.
It's really fun. That's why I love about making this kind of content. Is like, you get to walk with me through it. I got really hooked on that idea because I was just starting to teach myself some basic Japanese, because I was frankly horrific at saying anything in Japanese, so I started learning some basics so I could read the words properly.
Yeah, I'm definitely still bad.
Oh, I actually have another plug. I'm plugging myself all the time, but this one's actually really funny. I actually have a video I call, it's like the thumbnail, it just says, "I'm so sorry," and it's a compilation of my horrific attempt at reading Japanese.
Oh, that's
it's
amazing.
It's really funny.
Oh, that's amazing.
But I have so anyway, I have this going through, I was learning a bit of Japanese and just learning, like, the letters and what sounds they make. Effectively, that's all I knew. And I realized something. Sumika, it's 3 letters in Japanese. Su, mi, and ka. And then Kasumi is ka, su, mi. It's the same 3 sounds, the same 3 letters, just in a different, like, it's like an anagram. Right. And so I was like, that was obviously intentional,
right?
But I was so convinced too. Like, I was like, oh, this must be a reincarnation.
Yeah.
And so, like, what? So when alternative, like, when was it? When did you figure out what the brain was?
I usually pride myself on, like, figuring things out. Like, I figured out who the killer was in Persona 4. Won't spoil that, but, like, I'm like decent at picking up tracks. It was when it essentially revealed, like, oh, like, it was pretty, like, cut and dry that she was telepathically speaking to the brain. And the part that really threw me for a loop is at the end of Unlimited, when Kasumi, you're like, hey, we gotta go, like, we're abandoning the base, and she's like, no, if you take me out of this room, I'll die. I was like, what? What was that about? Like, but, like, so many things happened that, like, little hint I didn't pick up on. So it was well into Unlimited. I mean, alternative, before I figured out, like, oh, Sumika is the brain. Because
Yeah.
the way Alternative opens, where like, the American, I believe it's the Americans, TSFs.
It is Americans.
Yeah, when they're coming in and they're seeing all the brains on the ceilings and stuff like that. And I'm like, wait. I was like, for a second, I was like, could all of this be happening in their minds, and all of Squad 207 is actually like, I immediately went off
like a Matrix thing.
Yeah, like I immediately went off into like left field. And so essentially, I say all that to say, I did not guess it before the game told me that Sumika was actually the brain, and I was so thrown off by Kasumi always waking you up, and essentially like everything, just it completely, like I fell for every red herring.
I see. So for me, I think I said really early in Unlimited in one of my videos, I think I said I was like, I don't know where Sumika is, but if she's the brain in the tank, I'm going to be upset. But because that's often what happens in my videos is like I will throw lots of ideas out, and like my viewers often compliment me saying like, oh, you did a good job. But it's like, here's the thing, I'm like shotgunning, so it's like, yeah, I get hits, but it's like there's 4 other things I'm also thinking too that like have nothing to do with it. I just get lucky sometimes. So I don't count that. It really hit me. I figured it out a little early, because when he's in like the dark timeline of Extra, when like things are kind of realigning themselves, like, so we get the establishment of like Marimo died because it was reflecting his world. People were forgetting him because he was reflected of that world. And then there's the accident where Sumika gets crushed by the basketball stand, and like they won't show you anything, and it implies that she's still technically alive, but it's like she's like in some kind of vegetative state. And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. That's what
if
it was
Sumika's
reflecting herself, where have we seen somebody who might be considered in some kind of like vegetative or incapable state? And I was like, it's the brain in the tank, isn't it? I think I even told in the camera, I was like, I looked at the camera, I was like, is Sumika the brain? Like, is that Sumika herself? And we get back, and it was like, yep, there she is. And then, but it still got me, because there's like, here's Unit 00, Sumika's back. And I was just like, wait, what?
I was just baffled. I was just floored. But that makes sense, because Yuko, essentially, when you ask if Sumika was okay, she's like, well, she kind of like hints like, yeah, she's not technically dead, really.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh gosh. I thought she was like going to be a paraplegic or something, but that makes sense that she would be in a vegetative state, though, because because like you said, the part that really like dawned on me, I was like, okay, if he stayed in the Extra world, like we're talking 4 billion people would have inevitably had to die, right? Like, I mean, eventually it would have. That's kind of what, if I'm saying it right, Yuko Sensei was kind of alluding to, is that like, yeah, eventually everything from that timeline is going to try to correct itself here. So part of me,
go ahead. The only thing that she said would save them was that if he became a hermit. She said like the only chance was that maybe proximity was a part of it, and so if he like went and lived on an island by himself, he might keep the timeline from rubbing off. But like that was the only, and she even said then that like that still might actually not work. But that was like the game plan until he decided to go back.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and another thing, kind of to touch on the beta, and not to hop around, but something that really kind of blew me away is that, the whole thing is like the beta don't consider humans to be life forms. They're not intelligent life. And
yes.
So essentially it alludes to that the big reveal is that the beta are just like worker gathering colonies, but that there is a higher intelligent species, if I understand that right, out there. Almost. Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So the implication is like the beta are essentially to their creators. I like to call them the alphas. The beta are essentially to the alphas what robots are to us. It is a creation that can go places we cannot. Think about the Mars rovers we have. We can't go to Mars. And if we do, we have to do a lot of prep work to do so. But we can send robots to go there and do tasks for us. The beta are biological robots that are sent with sub-intelligence. Like they have the hive mind, but even that was not. It was more like a computer than an individual. and they sent them to planets that are like clean of life because the beta talks about how like the originators are silicon based, and so carbon based planets are toxic to them. They see them as wastelands where there's forms of life, but like it could. But they theorize that nothing could develop intelligence on a carbon-based life because that's just something that's completely foreign to them. They'd never seen anything that was like evidence of that intelligence was a thing. So they send these robots, effectively these fleshy robots that are carbon-based life forms, out to scour planets that they consider inhospitable to harvest the precious resources to fuel whatever the alphas are. So the betas essentially are just mining drones, and they just destroy anything that gets in their way, blindly killing whatever's in front of them because they see it all as they see like the planet as a big forest, and they see humans as bugs.
And I think that's what is kind of fascinating to me is how alternative ends. You know, it ends on a high note. You know, obviously there's a ton of sacrifice, but, you know, the main hive is destroyed. However, there's that, like there's still all these other hives. You know, humanity lost a lot in that suicide mission. However, to my knowledge, we know nothing. Like, it doesn't resolve anything about the betas, controllers, the alphas, you know, and I'm wondering if I'm hoping that the universe keeps expanding itself, because I think what, you know, a lot of times I focus so heavily on the characters that the world building of the Muv-Luv series is kind of awe-inspiring, and it has kind of those Lovecraftian kind of tropes of that there is a higher intelligence out there, but it doesn't care about you, you know. And that's something that I really am kind of interested to see if maybe some of the other entries ever expound on.
Yeah, one of the things, if anyone's listening to this and you're curious about it, one of the things you can do is if you buy Muv-Luv Alternative on Steam, there's a DLC you can get, which is the Muv-Luv Alternative Codex. Which, so if you buy the Codex and you launch it, it is effectively a compendium book where the creator kind of puts in all the notes of just like stuff that's in the game and stuff that he can't put in the game, including a history. And I wish I had thought to bring it up so I could give you details, but I skimmed through it fairly recently, and it goes over like the engagement, the war, but it actually says a little bit about what happens after. It's not like it's been officially published in anything quite yet, but the summary that it offers is simply the idea that humans, with the destruction of the original hive, are able to gain the upper hand. The Susano preludes more technologies that are based in G matter that allows the humanity to finally turn the tide and kind of reclaim the planet, and they're able to actually restart a lot of biogrowth, though the planet's pretty hard, like not doing well. But by the time they push back, they're able to cleanse the moon and Mars fairly quickly.
Oh, wow.
And then it becomes this whole intergalactic story where humans start colonizing other planets, and they start to come into conflict with the other, like the rest of the where the beta come from. But I also think it also starts devolving into human-on-human conflict again. Like, it talks a lot about that becoming a thing, because, you know, humans just seem to not be able to do anything else. But, like, yeah, if you get the Codex, which is a DLC to Alternative, that's on Steam, though. I don't know if the PSP can do that.
I don't remember.
I'm not sure what you could do.
But, okay, so that's really fascinating. And to my knowledge, I don't think the Vita can do that. But I honestly need to double check, because I didn't even think about DLC. Because to my extent, when you go to the Extra tab, which is where you would think like purchase DLC would be, it's just like, you know, the photo gallery and such like that. So, but yeah, that's really fascinating. And I'm very much interested. Can I get your thoughts on the anime that's coming up? I don't know much about it.
Okay, so my opinion so far is the fact that whenever you take a medium that is like a novel or anything that has a lot of like lore building, remember, we're talking 150 hours game in just the core material, let alone satellite material. and then you try and make one season of anime. Now, granted, I don't know, because I avoid spoilers like the plague, so I don't know if the one season is going to be a 12 episode or a 24 episode. If it's 24, I'll be a lot more excited. If it's just 12, I'm really skeptical they can even get close to telling the story enough, like properly, to really capture it. And I'm really worried that they're going to try and tell the story with minimal, if any, extra and unlimited, which I think are essential. Like, I'm really nervous. They're hoping that this is going to springboard them to success, but I don't know if they're doing it the right way.
I think that anytime you have caught a cult following, you need to have faith in what got that cult following, and I think that, visual novels are, at least, I mean, if I'm playing them, they're definitely getting a further reach, and I think that Muv-Luv Extra and Unlimited, to see that like in a done right and to have care and attention done to it, it would have that payoff that you get. And sometimes in, like, for me, I'm not super into like deep anime, but like, some of those payoffs you get in Death Note, but to the nth degree, because I really think that, doing that slice of life, the unlimited build up and seeing that character growth. But again, from what I can tell, and I have watched the trailer, I won't give any spoilers, but it does heavily push like the action part with the TSFs and, the alternative route is what it's kind of looking like. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's more to it than that.
No, it's I had one of my viewers on my Discord. Like, sometimes my viewers understand that my position on like spoilers, and so sometimes they give me a little bit of help. Where if they're braver than I am, they'll give me tidbits that like they think are that will be good for me. And in this case, they said that in an interview, it seems implied that this anime will be covering alternative from Takaru waking up to Operation 21st, which is, that's what the Susanoo, and I almost don't want to say, because like I know it's like we've talked about way worse spoilers, but I hate like the idea of spoiling what happens at that mission just because it was so traumatic. But that would be interesting, because if they do that, you don't have as much like direct correlation with Extra, except for Takaru dipping into that realm. So I don't know, like it's odd, but like I just don't know. I don't know why they're doing it the way they are. And also, like, have you seen the like the screenshot from the art?
No, I have seen some, but I'm not sure if I've seen what you're referring to.
All right, I'm gonna drop a copy while we're chatting, just so you can take a peek at it. But like, because that's one of the biggest criticism I actually hear is the fact that they give a still that I'm gonna drop into the chat. So like, viewers, I don't know, like maybe we'll get it thrown up in here, but if not, like it's pretty easy to find if you're trying.
I'll throw it up in the video.
I'd be shocked if you hadn't seen it.
I'll throw it up in the video.
Okay.
So.
All right. Oh, shoot. I just saved it, and now it's gone. Where'd you go? Where'd you go, Cotton Eye Joe? But the problem is that they have a screenshot of Takaru, Sumika, and Maya, and they don't look like they should do in the visual novel.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are very torn on the way that they've decided to stylize them.
Like, I could understand, like, if you touch some things, but like Maya, Sumika, and Takaru, like that seems like, yeah, don't mess with those, like, but yeah, no, that's.
I think because the biggest thing is I think what they're trying to do again is they're trying to modernize.
Oh,
they're trying to modernize like their look, and that's
and that kind of is what initially drew me to it, because I initially got into anime like probably most people, back in the early 2000s with like Adult Swim and like Trigun, Cowboy Bebop. And one of the reasons that this series clicked for me so well is one of my favorite animes is Blue Gender. And I don't know if you've seen that, but essentially Blue Genders, the TSFs and the mechs look very similar. It's also very dystopian. And the concept of that kind of deals with like without any spoilers for that, an alien race that's just completely obliterating mankind. So for me, like that part I already knew I loved. What surprised me is how much I grew to love Extra and Unlimited, with that character building and some of these tough moments. Oh my God, I'm going for, yeah, wow. They definitely modernized them.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a fan.
Now that's something that's interesting. I'm not a fan, but I also understand.
It's
it.
not
like
blasphemous, it's not like, it could
Yeah.
be worse, but yeah.
I think that what they want to make sure they do is they don't want the anime to alienate new potential viewers because the styles the styles moved on. It's I have to admit, sometimes like I've tried watching older anime and sometimes the style really throws me for a loop. I love Fruits Baskets. It's one of the first anime I was exposed to, but before I really actually watched it or even really understood what it was. I enjoyed it. I tried to go back and watch the original again, and I found it it was a struggle. Like the style was just it was unpalatable compared to what I've gotten used to. So I can see why they might do that, but it stinks because like their looks were so intrinsic to like what I fell in love with, and so I hate seeing it like different. And like though I get there's a lot of memes I see on Twitter of like how it like you can't take away like the fin vents from around their heads because they need that to cool themselves.
That's hilarious actually. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, I used to be much more of a purist, but like I also, like you said, you can understand, because to my knowledge, this originally ran in like the early 2000s. Is that when this Muv-Luv originally came out on the 360 maybe? But yeah.
I gotta look it up because like at Steam it'll lie to me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's been a hot minute for sure. So I get it, but, and again, sorry to use most of the spoiler discussion to talk about the anime, but it's kind of wondering where the series goes from here, because Project Mikhail comes out for the Switch, and I'm very excited about the prospect of that, and I'm wondering kind of what direction that story route will go, because I'd assume it might be set in kind of the Photon Melodies, the unlimited continuation timeline, for lack of what to call that timeline. So
yeah, that seems most likely to me. I would call that the day after.
Oh, okay.
So like sometimes something post unlimited, but not the alternative. So like it's a world line where the ships leave, and that's most likely because that's a place where a lot of people can play, because canon obviously is alternative, but in unlimited, like there's a lot less restriction because events that's an alternate timeline, and there's like typically there's unlimited number of them. So I think it's the space that most like outside writers are going to be given like a play. So that would make the most sense to me.
One question I have about alternative at the end, essentially, and again, major spoilers, even though this is a spoiler discussion.
Yeah, I know. I still feel bad every time I say something.
At the end, when Takaru makes it back to the perfect, essentially the absolute best timeline he could make it to, after I beat the game, I did go online to kind of see what other people's thoughts were on it, to see if everybody was just completely blown away as I was by that whole sequence of events. And I did see where some people were upset that Takaru had lost his memories. And they kind of like, would he have lost his growth as a character? And for me, I can see it from the perspective of, and I don't have the person's name, but they had brought it up to where, how could Takaru ever go on like and have a happy life if he remembered everything that took place, back in the alternative timeline? And it's like, okay, they do have a point. So like, even though it is a happy ending, I mean, obviously that timeline still continues forward where, everything that happened, but still, like, how did you feel when the credits rolled at the end of Alternative?
I think, to me, what we saw at the end and what you absolutely have to play, which is called Altered Fable.
I do need to play that.
You do. Oh my gosh, it's so good. But like, by the way, if you're wondering, Altered Fable, it's part of, if you want to buy it, it's part of the collection. It's called Photon Melodies. You can get on Steam for sure. I don't know if you can get it anywhere else right now. Altered Fable is the love letter by the creator to the fans, because it's a continuation of the after credits of Alternative. So like, everyone's together, everyone knows each other, and it's talking like all the characters, like every side character that's involved, and you effectively can do replay extra, but you have, it's only joyful and happy and full of fun. And so like, it's funny because it's like, it really is like replaying extra, but with hindsight. It like becomes the greatest game of all time. It's so
Can I
good.
get a Switch port, please? It's so hard. I know this is my little soapbox real quick. It is hard for me to game on like sitting down with it. Like once I found out these were on Vita, I was like, you're speaking my language. I would love for all of them to get a port with Photon Melodies and all of them onto Switch. And a super nice collection. I will be there day one. Please, if you're listening, make that happen.
I played them all. I'll buy them again if it meant they would do that. Like if anyone's listening from Anchor, like we will buy them, even if I've already played them. I'll buy them again.
It'll happen. But I'm going to have to relent and just pick it up on Steam because that's too cool to miss out on.
It's too cool to miss, honestly. But anyway, to answer your actual question, so how I felt about the ending, based on everything that happened, and then like remember, we're talking about not just a talker who's seen like some of the most horrific stuff. He's a talker who, in his soul, has done it hundreds, maybe thousands, tens of thousands of times in a repeating block that would break a person. In fact, the only reason Alternative happens is because part of him started leaking into his current self. Like that's a spiral that likely would have like, it allowed him to have like a success because he had those memories. But that, if that had continued to repeat, it would have destroyed what was left of him and effectively would have ended in the worst timeline where he just like appears in his house as a blithering mad person who can't do anything besides piss his pants. Like that's not good. I think Sumika gave him and everybody like what she pictured the best world. And in the best world, they never had to deal with that. Yeah. Does it make Takaru less of a person? You'll actually find in Altered Fable, he's back to extra Takaru version. And like, yeah, he's kind of aggravating. I even say when I played this, it's like, I forgot how much I don't like extra Takaru.
It's true.
But,
it's true.
But you can't have gone through that whole journey and say that Takaru is worse off because he can't remember it. So I think Sumika gave them a gift. It was cry-worthy. I cried there too.
I bet.
But there's one thing you got to remember. You got to remember Kasumi and her reaction.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So you got to think about that because they cover that in Altered Fable.
Yeah.
Like
I need it. I have to play this.
Yeah. You got to play that game, man. It's so worth it. Like.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just fanboying over here, so it's fine. Go ahead.
I want to just give a huge props to the writers of Muv-Luv. If you get nothing else from the spoiler discussion, if you can take real quick, one of the reasons I love the Souls series is because everything in the game has a reason. You know, if you die, you come back at the bonfire, there is an actual lore reason that happens. For me, you know, you beat Extra and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to check out these other waifus. So you go and you play the game again, you get the other waifus. You go to Unlimited, hey, I got you Zero. I want to check out Maya this time. You go and you do all that. At the end of everything, you realize that everything's canon. Everything. Like the writers have created story concepts and plot devices that make everything you have done canon. And that just kind of, my mind just exploded when I realized that, yes, there is a timeline where you ended up with Chizuru. There's a timeline where you ended up here, there. You know, it's just, wow. Kudos to them. I thought that was phenomenally done.
Absolutely. I think it's the core and essentially why it really is like the top tier of all visual novels. It's not just because it's a good story. It is a phenomenal story, but it's also because the people who made it understood the genre. They understood and loved the genre, and they made something that was a masterclass of the genre and writing in general. So you take somebody who knows how to write effectively the perfect script, somebody who like I don't understand because like he has such a good understanding of sorrow, of frustration and pain. He has such a good understanding of human nature to make it so that you can have these characters that on the surface initially can come off as very they're very much main character-ness and very like main heroine-ness, but then you break them down and you're like these are more human. Like I'm not as human as these people are. How does the writer do that? And then not only that, he also plays off of your expectations as a player of a visual novel. Like it's the quintessential visual novel because it was someone who genuinely understood what they were making and they played off of it. Not just to tell a story, but also to tell a story involving the player. It's really phenomenal, and it's not fourth wall. Well, it can sometimes fourth wall break, but not in the sense of like, oh, this is a visual novel. It's more of like, there's just this feeling that you're just as involved, and yet you know that you're not like physically there. It's almost it's uncanny, like how well it pulls you in and how much it makes you a part of the narrative. And so yeah, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, for sure. I could not have said it better myself. Yeah. Let's see here. Are there any other aspects of the story that kind of are burning in your mind that you want to bring up? Because those were honestly just what I had kind of written down, taken notes on. But obviously, there is so much to this series. It is, I mean, like you said, what was 150 hours of story, essentially, not counting
core content.
Right. Yeah, it's just it is a lot, but it is all good start to finish. So,
so I do have one thing I want to say that's gonna kind of wrap up my ultimate feelings too. Again, I record my reaction to playing these games. I analyze them live and talk about them, do character development, all that stuff. So I really try and dive into these things really deeply. Currently, I'm still doing Muv-Luv on my channel actively. I'm in Melodies right now. I finished Altered Fable about a month ago. So I'm still plodding through them, and I'm going to be jumping right into the day after when I finish Melodies. So they keep giving me content. I'm going to keep making it. But the thing I need to impress and want to say here too is the fact that unlike almost everything else I've ever taken in, usually you feel like the quality of stories drops when you start getting into satellite content, because there's a reason why content doesn't make it into a core story. Usually it's not as good. They're not as bad, but usually a good example of this is in Steins Gate. I love Steins Gate and Steins Gate Zero, but Linear Bound Phenogram, which is kind of a collection of short stories that takes place along the same narrative chain, they're good, but you can tell there's a reason why they never got covered in the core game. Because it's just not as substantive. Muv-Luv's satellite content, I have yet to come across anything that's not a masterpiece in and of itself. There are some that are kind of not maybe as high tiered, but they're still very enjoyable. But then there are ones that just make my jaw drop. They bring the tears again. This man and the team of people, whoever are part of these games, they are machines that just do not stop. I'm currently reading Adoration, and I recorded a latest bit today. And Adoration is fun because it's almost like the feeling of Extra, but in the unlimited timeline. So the beta invasion's happening. You're following a character who's doing an exchange program to the UK from Japan. You're following his story, but it plays with the characters. It makes some references that are really funny for an anime fan. The characters are wacky. You get these really crazy interactions, and you have your classic oh no, I'm accidentally in the wrong shower in the part of the bath, and all the typical stuff you see that are very I attribute to the extra side of the Muv-Luv stuff. And then you get the harsh reminder that you're not an extra anymore. And the way they tell the story, even though this visual part, this side story is probably 5 hours long, 6 hours long, like, well, it's probably longer than that. It feels like it's only 5 or 6 hours. You still have this like tight story with memorable characters, with like a memorable setting and interesting stuff. They're talking about stuff in the universe that you haven't talked about before, where they're, especially because they're highlighting the Typhoon TSFs that are they're deployed on the East Coast. And the more you expand into this, the more you realize like the guy wrote Muv-Luv like Brandon Sanderson writes fantasy novels, like Alexander Hamilton wrote discourses on government. Like, this man does not sleep. I don't know what he does, but his world is so well developed, and he's got so much to say and so much to tell in stories that are so well crafted. Like, it's a well that never stops. It's a vein of gold that never seems to vanish or deplete. It just keeps getting better.
It's fantastic. Yeah, and I'm very excited to hear that you play Extra Unlimited Alternative, you love it. Well, congratulations. This is just essentially the starting point to this deeper world. And I'm very excited to dive into those. And honestly, for anybody who is watching and listening, and if you maybe don't have access to a certain system and you just want to experience these stories, please head over to the Blue Shifting's YouTube channel. Fantastic playthroughs. Visual novel, my favorite visual novel to watch. So please check out the link in the description. There's a wealth of content there.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And of course, if you're here, I subscribe to Hallowed Be Thy Game, because he's got some great stuff here. The best thing I like about it is like you put so much care into all your videos. It's funny because like I stumbled upon you on Twitter. I was just happy that you were picking up a visual novel, but the fact that you got your souls, you have your highlight videos, you've got your reviews of just tons of games. Your E3 reactions were great. Like, make sure you stick around. This is definitely a channel that that you should support, and kind of keep seeing what he's going to be bringing up, because he's got some good stuff in the pipeline.
Well, I'm very excited. Thank you so much. And what's awesome is I think this is as a newcomer, it seems like, this is a great time to be getting into Muv-Luv. It sounds like, there's a lot coming out for Muv-Luv right now. And I think this is great. And like you said, the studio seems to be heavily encouraging content creators and stuff like that, and it's very exciting to be hopefully on the tip of the spear and to help spread the word about this fantastic visual novels. I would not have called myself a visual novel fan. I was interested. I liked what I played in the Nonary games. I thought it was fantastic, but diving into it, once you experience Muv-Luv, there's really no going back. It is definitely a life-changing experience as a gamer,
Exactly. And I built a whole channel around it. There's so much content. I'm drowning in it. I have people who are desperate for me to play games that I just don't even know if I'll have time for. If you ever I always say, this is going to be my final thought. I think visual novels are the quintessential storytelling genre. You have the scope and scale and dialogue of a novel, of an actual physical book, where you're not shy about word count, they're not shy about length. It's all about just exploring a world in the best way possible. But then you take that book and you get to add visual cues that help you picture the scenes and the characters and the way they look and the image that the original creator has, and you put in a movie score levels of music. And you effectively have the best combination of books. You have a movie and a video game and a book all in one. So, top-notch content. I highly recommend. If you even remotely liked Muv-Luv, you should really check out the genre as a whole. It's a lot more than the eroge, hentai games. There's so much more there. Those are real. Those are there. But there's a lot more to it.
That's right. Yeah, and as for me, on where I'm going from here, I have been warned, Muv-Luv is the top of the mountain. So I'm not going to look at everything through the prism of Muv-Luv. I am fully aware that this was essentially that lightning in a bottle experience, and I just have absolutely loved it. I'm very excited to jump into the Steins Gate series, the Nonary games, and just here recently at E3, Danganronpa is coming to Switch, so I'm going to be jumping into that too. So there's a lot there. Great Ace Attorney. So the genre is alive and well. It is fantastic. I'm excited, but I will always have a very special place in my heart for the Muv-Luv experience, and I do call it an experience because, it made me feel things that I haven't felt in well over a decade, and it made me ask questions of myself that I had never even thought to ask before. So it has been incredible. And honestly, it's led me to such awesome people. Zaduk Zud, thank you so much. Her recommendations have just been fantastic. But also being able to meet you and do this collaboration, it has been a incredible and very much an honor to just do this with you. And I want to thank you so much for joining me on this spoiler discussion, Blue. So.
Oh, no worries. And you bring me back when you do Steins Gate. I'll happily return.
Oh, hey, there we go. I'm going to hold you to it. Just heads
Please
up.
do. I'm excited already. I can't wait for you to play it.
Well, thank you so much. And also, guys, again, check out the Blue Shifting's channel down in the description. If you're not subbed to him already, what are you doing? Get on that. But also be checking out his playlist and just be... thank you guys so much for watching. It has just been a blast to experience this with you. Let us know down in the comments what your thoughts on it. I feel like, don't hold back. I mean, we've kind of given enough spoiler warnings to where, feel free to share your unfiltered thoughts in the comments. So
yeah, this will be a safe place for all of that. But
Right.
don't spoil any other stories. And make sure, if you're going to be in comments, also make sure you recommend Hallowed Be Thy Game, another visual novel to play, because he's got a lot to explore.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I will definitely have my notepad out and be I'm very vigilant with the comments, so thank you. But thank you guys so much for watching. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.